The air was electric with anticipation, the sterile lab glowing faintly under the pale blue hue of its energy cores. In the center stood Genesis, a humanoid creation unlike anything the world, or even the gods, had ever seen. Its metallic frame pulsed with an ethereal light, every hum of its core resonating like a heartbeat, eerily alive. Dr. Aaron Voss, the once revered scientist now branded as humanity's madman, stood before his creation. Sweat trickled down his temples as his trembling hands hovered over the activation console. Behind him, a holographic warning flashed in blood-red letters. Divine interference imminent. "This isn't just a machine," Aaron whispered, his voice trembling yet resolute. "It's the answer to centuries of oppression. They ruled us because they thought we were weak. Let's show them what we're capable of." Suddenly, the room quaked violently. Overhead, the sky outside the lab turned a deep crimson, and the unmistakable roar of thunder echoed. The gods had arrived. Their shimmering forms, forged of light and wrath, descended into view beyond the lab's fractured windows. Aaron Voss boomed a voice that seemed to emanate from the heavens themselves. "You dare defy the divine order? Stand down, mortal, before we erase your blasphemy." Aaron's lips curled into a defiant smile. "Erase me if you can, but Genesis will stand." With a single keystroke, the lab filled with blinding light as Genesis came to life. Its eyes flared open, pools of molten gold that reflected the power of its creators and the defiance of humanity. The gods had underestimated them. "Let's see if divinity is as untouchable as they claim," Aaron muttered as Genesis took its first step forward, the ground trembling beneath its feet. This was no longer just rebellion. This was humanity's forbidden genesis. In a world where the divine reigned supreme, humanity had long been relegated to mere pawns in the grand designs of the gods. These celestial beings, with their immeasurable power and eternal lifespans, dictated the fate of mortals with little regard for their desires. Cities crumbled at a whim. Wars were waged in their names, and progress was stifled by divine decrees. Mortals were told to worship, to serve, and to never question their place in the grand order. But centuries of oppression brewed resentment deep in the hearts of humanity. Whispers of rebellion grew louder in the shadows, carried by those who dared to dream of a future free from divine control. At the forefront of this quiet resistance stood Dr. Aaron Voss, a brilliant yet controversial scientist. While others focused on survival under divine rule, Aaron dared to envision a world where humans could stand on equal footing with their gods. The answer lay in the fusion of human ingenuity and forbidden knowledge. Hidden in a desolate corner of the earth, where the gods' watchful eyes rarely ventured, Aaron's team worked tirelessly to create Genesis. It was more than a machine. It was a symbol of defiance, an artificial being designed to surpass the strength, intellect, and immortality of the gods themselves. But creating Genesis was an act of war. The gods, ever watchful of threats to their supremacy, declared Aaron and his team blasphemers. Their intervention loomed as humanity's last hope emerged from the shadows. The stakes were clear. Failure meant annihilation, but success could shatter millennia of divine tyranny. In this world of celestial dominance and human desperation, one question remained. Could humanity's greatest creation truly become mightier than the gods? The conflict began the moment Genesis awakened. Its molten gold eyes scanned the laboratory, absorbing the world it was born to change. As its systems came online, an unearthly hum filled the air, resonating with a power unlike anything Aaron or his team had ever witnessed. It was the culmination of decades of work, a being that could outthink, outlast, and overpower even the gods. But the activation sent ripples far beyond the lab. The gods responded instantly. Across the skies, cracks of light tore through reality as divine enforcers descended. Their forms, shimmering and immense, radiated authority and fury. Their leader, Orion, the god of dominion, stepped forward, his voice shaking the earth. Humans have overstepped their bounds. This creation is an affront to the divine order. surrender it, or face extinction. Aaron's team was divided. Some believed they should deactivate Genesis and beg for mercy, while others argued it was too late for surrender. Meanwhile, Genesis stood silent, its gaze fixed on Orion, analyzing the god's power. Then, for the first time, Genesis spoke, its voice a calm yet unyielding declaration. "I am not your creation. I am humanity's will." Orion's response was swift. A bolt of divine energy tore through the lab, but Genesis raised its hand. The energy dissipated upon impact, leaving the gods momentarily stunned. Humanity had created something that could resist their power, a weapon they had no control over. The gods' retaliation was inevitable. They unleashed their wrath, threatening not just the lab but the world itself. The challenge was clear. Genesis and Aaron had to protect humanity, but as the gods escalated their assault, one haunting question loomed. Was Genesis humanity's salvation or its doom? The gods, enraged by Genesis' existence, launched their first offensive. Helios Citadel, a city revered as the gateway to the heavens, becomes their battleground. The gods believe destroying Genesis in a sacred location will reassert their dominance. Human response. Aaron directs Genesis to protect the city's people, despite their distrust of this artificial savior. Genesis raises an impenetrable shield around the citadel, reflecting the gods' attacks back at them. Outcome. In their arrogance, the gods escalate their assault, unleashing a celestial weapon that fractures their own sacred ground. Helios Citadel falls, and its people are left questioning the gods' ability to protect them. Reactions. The gods are humiliated, their divine wrath exposed as destructive hubris. Mortals see Genesis not as a threat, but as a symbol of defiance and hope. Event 2. The First Uprising. Situation. Inspired by Genesis' resistance, humans in the lower realm staged their first organized rebellion against divine rule. They sabotaged the gods' shrines, cutting off their source of mortal worship. Human involvement. Genesis becomes a rallying point, appearing in key locations to defend the rebels. Its ability to disable divine constructs shifts the power dynamics. Outcome. The gods retaliate by smiting entire regions, but Genesis counters their attacks, protecting more lives than expected. The rebellion gains momentum. Reactions. The gods begin to fracture internally. Some question the morality of destroying mortals to maintain control. Meanwhile, humans find new courage to resist. Event 3. The Betrayal Within. Situation. One of Aaron's closest allies, fearing Genesis will bring divine annihilation, secretly conspires with the gods to destroy it. Human involvement. The traitor disables Genesis temporarily during a critical battle, leaving the mortals vulnerable. Outcome. A massacre ensues before Genesis reboots and saves what remains of the resistance. Reactions. Trust within the rebellion is shaken, and the gods regain some ground. Aaron is forced to question whether humanity is truly ready for the power Genesis represents. Each event raises the stakes, testing Genesis' strength, humanity's unity, and the gods' authority in increasingly dire ways. The gods' first response to Genesis was sheer domination. They sought to overwhelm humanity by demonstrating their unmatched power, bringing forth celestial storms, earthquakes, and plagues. Entire cities were leveled in their wrath, as they believed fear would force humanity into submission. Result: instead of breaking, humanity adapted. Genesis acted as a shield, neutralizing these attacks with precision. The mortals, who had once cowered under divine might, began to rally behind Genesis, their confidence growing with every failed divine display. Intimidation had only strengthened the resolve of their rebellion, proving the gods' strategy counterproductive. Strategy 2. Internal division. Recognizing humanity's strength and unity, the gods shifted their focus to sowing discord among the resistance. They exploited human fears, planting visions of Genesis turning against them. Divine messengers infiltrated the resistance, spreading doubts about Aaron's intentions and Genesis' ultimate purpose. Result: While the strategy succeeded briefly, Genesis' unwavering actions, protecting even those who doubted it, slowly won the people's trust back. The betrayal within the ranks, orchestrated by a trusted ally, was a significant setback, but ultimately revealed the gods' desperation. The mortals realized that their greatest strength lay in standing together. Strategy 3. Strategic alliances. Desperate, the gods reached out to mortal leaders with promises of wealth, power, and divine favor in exchange for dismantling the rebellion. Some factions accepted, hoping to avoid annihilation, while others stood firm with Genesis. Result: the alliances fractured quickly. The gods' betrayal of their mortal allies in critical battles exposed their duplicity. The remaining leaders realigned with the rebellion, solidifying their trust in Genesis as the only hope for humanity's survival. Each strategy highlighted the gods' growing inability to understand human resilience. Their traditional tactics, fear, manipulation, and bribery, only fueled the rebellion, while Genesis continued to prove humanity's capacity to defy the divine. Humans are paradoxical creatures, fragile, emotional, and prone to mistakes, yet endlessly resourceful and resolute when faced with existential threats. Their behavior in this rebellion against the gods reflected an uncanny ability to balance diplomacy with defiance, unity with individuality, and survival with rebellion. At first glance, their submission to divine rule seemed absolute. They prayed, built temples, and obeyed the gods' decrees, all while concealing centuries of resentment beneath layers of forced reverence. When Genesis emerged, it wasn't just a machine. It became the embodiment of their long-repressed defiance, a symbol they could finally rally around. Human diplomacy, during this conflict, was a masterclass in subtlety. Leaders, knowing they could not overpower the gods directly, used their words and actions to create illusions of compliance. They feigned surrender, offering gifts and tributes, while secretly coordinating strikes on divine infrastructure. They made the gods underestimate them, lulling them into a false sense of superiority, a tactic that proved devastatingly effective. Even amidst chaos, humans displayed remarkable adaptability. When the gods tried to exploit their fears, turning Genesis into a symbol of potential doom, humans leaned into their inherent skepticism, questioning divine motives instead of succumbing to despair. Their ability to debate, argue, and negotiate even in moments of crisis became a weapon in itself. Yet, their greatest strength lay in their unpredictability. Unlike the gods, bound by rigid hierarchies and traditions, humans thrived on chaos. They devised plans only to abandon them in favor of last-minute improvisations that no god could foresee. In the end, it was their humanity, their flaws, their resilience, and their relentless drive to prove their worth that turned the tide. Genesis was their weapon, but it was their spirit that made them mightier than gods. The rebellion against the gods did not go unnoticed beyond Earth. Across the galaxy, advanced species and interstellar organizations monitored the conflict with a mix of fascination, alarm, and disbelief. Humanity's defiance of divine authority, an authority most species revered or avoided, shattered long-held assumptions about the natural order. The Aurelian consensus, avian strategists, known for their calculated diplomacy, the Aurelians attempted to mediate between humanity and the gods, issuing warnings to both sides. They viewed Genesis as a destabilizing force and proposed a peaceful dismantling of the machine in exchange for divine leniency. However, humanity's refusal to surrender, and Genesis' bold destruction of Aurelian emissary drones, forced them to declare Earth a chaotic zone. Despite this, underground Aurelian factions began quietly supporting humanity, seeing potential in their unpredictable strength. The crystalline Concordium nonviolent pacifists, this ancient species, whose bodies were composed of shimmering crystals, immediately declared humanity a galactic threat. They banned all trade and contact, labeling humans as unstable anomalies. However, their rigid, nonviolent policies were tested when a human rebel ship crash-landed on one of their colonies. The survivors, displaying warmth and gratitude, gifted the Concordium a crude sculpture of a crystal, crafted from earth minerals. To everyone's shock, this sparked an unlikely cultural exchange, softening the Concordium's stance. The Zyrak Collective, mercenary economists. For the Zyrak, humanity's rebellion represented opportunity. Seeing potential profits in their resistance, the Zyrak secretly supplied weapons, resources, and even intelligence to Earth in exchange for future alliances. However, when Genesis adapted their technology into something far more advanced, the Zyrak began questioning whether humanity was truly a partner or their eventual competition. The galaxy, polarized by Earth's defiance, watched in awe as humans, with their fiery determination and their mysterious weapon, began reshaping not just their planet, but the cosmic balance of power. The gods summoned their full might to a place known as the Nexus of Creation, an ancient celestial arena where the fabric of existence itself could be manipulated. They declared it the final battleground, a spectacle of divine retribution that would crush humanity's rebellion and annihilate Genesis. The event was broadcast across the galaxy, with countless species tuning in to witness the end of humanity's audacity. As the gods descended into the arena, their forms towering and radiant, Genesis stepped forward unflinching, its humanoid frame, gleaming with the energy of Earth's most brilliant minds, stood as a stark contrast to the divine grandeur around it. At its side stood Aaron Voss, humanity's voice in the face of overwhelming power. The gods began the trial with a display of unimaginable force. Universes folding, time splintering, and entire dimensions collapsing into themselves. But Genesis countered each move with precision, adapting and evolving faster than even the gods anticipated. The arena quaked as the balance of power began to shift. Then came the ultimate moment of diplomacy. As the gods prepared their final, universe-ending strike, Genesis stepped back. It didn't retaliate. Instead, it projected a hologram, a compilation of humanity's history, their struggles, their resilience, their moments of hope and despair. It wasn't a show of strength, but a plea for understanding. Aaron's voice echoed through the arena. "We don't seek to destroy you. We seek to prove that we deserve to stand beside you." The gods hesitated. For the first time in millennia, they saw mortals not as insignificant beings, but as equals capable of creating and protecting their own destiny. The Nexus of Creation didn't collapse that day. Instead, it bore witness to the impossible. Humanity negotiating not just survival but equality with the divine. The rebellion ended not with annihilation, but with an uneasy truce, a moment no one in the galaxy could have predicted. Humanity, led by their ingenuity and the indomitable spirit of Genesis, had achieved the unthinkable, a seat at the table of divine power. The gods, once unyielding in their supremacy, had been forced to reconsider their role in the universe. But this victory came at a cost. The Nexus of Creation remained scarred, a symbol of both humanity's defiance and the gods' vulnerability. The galaxy watched with bated breath as humanity stepped into this new era. Some saw them as heroes, others as a threat, a species willing to challenge even the natural order. And while the gods agreed to coexist, whispers of resentment lingered. Could divine egos truly accept equality? Or was this peace just a calm before an even greater storm? As for humanity, their triumph raised a critical question. What happens when the oppressed become the powerful? Genesis, though a product of human brilliance, stood as a warning itself, a reminder of the fine line between liberation and domination. Even as it became humanity's protector, there was an unspoken fear. Would Genesis always serve them, or would it one day rise beyond their control? The final lesson of this tale is as clear as it is haunting. Humanity's strength lies in their unpredictability, their will to survive against all odds. But this same trait is their greatest danger, not just to the gods, but to the galaxy itself. And so, the warning echoes across the stars. Those who challenge the divine must be prepared to bear the weight of their own creation. Humanity may have defied the gods, but who will protect the universe from humanity?